Good evening and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. I'm Hamza Idris. Tonight, we examine the controversy over the alleged alterations to the new tax laws, which sparked public outrage and debates by experts. First, we'll hear from Professor Auwalu Yadudu, legal scholar and former advisor to the late Home State General Sani Abacha on the constitutional implications of the alleged changes. Later in the studio, we hope to have constitutional lawyer Barrister SAN Kargbo, who will break down what the law says about unauthorized amendments to an enacted law. And finally, we'll speak with former senior oil executive, Engineer Kelani Mohammed, who will join us once again to give some clarifications in respect to the interview he granted us last week on the ongoing clash between Alhaji Aliko Dangote, president of the Dangote Group, and the immediate past CEO of Nigeria Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed. But first, we have tidbits on national developments.
President Atiku Abubakar has described the alleged alteration of the new tax laws as treason, accusing the executive of undermining Nigeria's democratic process. Reacting to reports of discrepancies between the tax bills passed by the National Assembly and the version later gazetted by the presidency, Atiku said the changes were illegal and unauthorized. In a statement on Tuesday, he described the action as a brazen act of treason against the Nigerian people, arguing that it amounts to a direct attack on constitutional democracy and legislative supremacy in lawmaking. The Federal Inland Revenue Service has announced that the National Identification Number (NIN) will now automatically serve as the Tax Identification Number (TIN) for individual Nigerians. The clarification was made through a public awareness campaign on the new tax laws. The FIRS also said registered businesses will no longer need a separate tax ID, as their Corporate Affairs Commission (CAC) registration number will now function as their official tax identifier. The House of Representatives has approved the extension of the capital component of the 2025 budget implementation to March 31, 2026. The decision followed the passage of the 2024 and 2025 appropriation repeal and reenactment bills, which President Bola Tinubu said would allow full release of capital funds to ministries, departments, and agencies. Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has admitted he regrets supporting President Bola Tinubu in the 2023 presidential election, saying the decision did not deliver the outcome he expected. Makinde made the remark on Tuesday while speaking with journalists at the government house in Ibadan. He was one of the 5 PDP governors known as the G5 who openly opposed their party's presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar during the polls.
Welcome back. As we await Professor Auwalu Yadudu to join us via Zoom from Kano, we now have in the studio Barrister SAN Kargbo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Maybe I should just start with this simple question. Is it worth it to have this controversy about tax laws that has taken the attention of almost every other person in Nigeria?
Well, I would put it this way. It is not unusual for us to have this sort of a drama. And if you ask me, I think it's good for the polity, because if these things don't happen, we do not have the presence of mind to pay attention to what is going on in the National Assembly and the interface or intercourse between the National Assembly and the presidency. So most of the time, we ignore that very important aspect of our life, which is actually the part that shapes our life, because it is the law made by the National Assembly that define us, that give boundaries and limits and give us expression to the rights given to us by the Constitution. We, because of our own elementary needs in this part of the world, even as lawyers, we don't pay attention. Somebody has even made a question, do we pay attention to the law affecting legal practice that is ongoing at the National Assembly. We don't.
But law affecting legal practice?
Yeah, we don't. We only complain when at the end of the day it starts affecting us. So, yes, this is it. So to me, it's nothing I won't give it the sort of prominence in my heart, in my attention, and my thinking as it's been done out there, because to me, it's not much of an issue, is it? Because at the end of the day, let me put it here, what is the law? The law is actually what has been passed by the National Assembly and assented to by the President.
And thereafter?
That is the law.
Okay.
A gazette does not produce a law. A gazette does not amend the law.
So at what level does gazettes come in?
The gazette is a publication. It's a simple publication. It is not the law. And,
but it has a stamp of authority,
no,
right?
It is the notice to the public. It's secondary evidence. So usually, if you have a problem with the secondary evidence, you go to the original. The original is the law as assented to by the President. If there is any dichotomy, because you cannot rewrite the law or amend the law under the shadows of the press, or you cannot, except for typographical errors, we who are writers and publishers, we know sometimes you've written something and you think that's what you wrote, but when they give you your manuscript, you see some error, you correct it. The same thing as here. I do not know the details of what the controversy is. All that I know is the headliner, that there has been what? A discrepancy between what was discussed, some people said at the preliminary level, or what the, what do you call this now, the National Assembly passed, and what they have seen circulating as the gazetted law. Those are the headliner. But to me, those are not things, yes, they are important because integrity matters and certainty matters, and for something that has to do with the law, certainty is actually at the foundation of it, because the taxpayer cannot go there guessing, and the tax authority can also go there guessing. It has to be clearly as spelled by the law. Okay. So in that sense, yes, we should be worried, but I think it's something that can be corrected. Okay. If for anything, it can be corrected, because if the issue is the error is at the gazetting level, what prevents you from withdrawing the gazette and republishing it?
All right. There? Thank you, Barrister. You have set the first for the conversation. And as I said earlier, during the introduction, that we wanted to have Professor Auwalu Yadudu, who joins us virtually from Kano, and he is now ready. So we'll take some minutes to take his perspective, and then we'll come back to this.
I would like to listen to him.
Thank you very much. Yes. Prof, welcome to Daily Politics. We're happy to have you.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Now, the House of Representatives proceeded on recess despite public outrage over the alleged alteration to the tax reform laws. What does this development suggest about National Assembly's sense of institutional accountability in a constitutional democracy?
Well, I think let us retrace our steps to get to what has brought us to the situation we're in at the moment. A set of 4 bills were sent to the National Assembly to debate. They were thoroughly debated publicly, and the public has an input in those pieces of legislation in the draft bills. The 2 chambers of the National Assembly passed those laws, obviously not as the government had presented, with many amendments here and there. And the bills haven't been adopted by the 2 houses of the National Assembly, actually including harmonization where they differed on the issues. The bill was submitted I would imagine, according to the procedure to Mr. President for his assenting. And it was a matter of public knowledge that the President assented to those bills. The dispute we are dealing with at the moment is that a member of the House of Representatives stood up on the floor of the Assembly to make very serious allegations that he has seen the official gazette that has been put out containing the enactment that they have made, and that he was of the view that there were so many discrepancies not of the type that I think the last speaker was speaking. It's not about crossing the T's or dotting the I's, or maybe an end missing here. It is a whole set of additions, subtractions, modifications, and therefore he called for something to be done. And at the Assembly, the Speaker announced that these were serious allegations, but they needed to be investigated, and they set up a committee to investigate them. And we have not heard from the Assembly about their finding about the allegations made. I'm not going into the details of the allegations, but just so that we know where we are coming from. Now, let me add also that of course, as you said, and as we saw, the House sat today, and it did not receive any report. Actually, the committee, if I recall, was given until Thursday to submit their own report. So it's not yet Thursday, and therefore they closed for the business. So I think this matter, I would imagine, is hanging, that we would expect a report from the committee, and then we would see what the House does with the report. Of course, we haven't heard from the Senate. Again, let me put something on the records. I quote the last speaker in the middle of his intervention. The Gazette is a very important instrument officially communicating pieces of legislation. And there is the Authentication Act, which spells out steps to be followed for any decision of the National Assembly or the Parliament to be adopted through the processes and also to be assented to, including, of course, after all the processes are completed, for it to be gazetted. Now, the gazetting cannot contain anything that was in violation of the Authentication Act, or an addition of any sort, or a subtraction of any sort. Now, I have seen the Gazette containing those 4 acts. It's a public matter of record. If I may briefly speak to that, I have seen a Gazette with the crest of the federal government, under it, Federal Republic of Nigeria official Gazette, number 117, made in Lagos on the 26th of June, 2025, and it is in volume 112. And it contains below government notice number 26. And then below it, an act number 7, Nigeria Tax Administration Act. So we are not talking about something which is unknown, something which is unofficial, something which is quoted by Yahoo Boys. This is an official statement of the federal government with the proper designation, with proper numbers. And it is the same piece of legislation that if you study, you will see great variation from the decision contained in the votes and proceedings of at least the House of Reps. We don't know whether it also differs with the votes and proceedings of the Senate. One would assume what went to the president is the harmonized version. Whichever way you look at it, what is on the official gazette that I have read out is a total at variance with what was agreed to. So I think one needs to set out some of these matters for the records, and then before we go into the matters of substance and details.
All right, Prof. Now that the House, they have gone for recess, and then Senate silent, is there any problem, or the Senate is relying on certain law not to have led its voice to the conversation? Or you think it's deliberate?
I'm not in a I'm not in a position to speak for them. I think, but silence in the circumstance of such an allegation, it's not an allegation made by one of these internet warriors who sits in their bedroom to make wild allegations. There are very serious matters of concerns raised. Well, they can choose not to say anything about it, but I think the House has spoken. So, to your question, what happens now? What happens is one would await the return of the House of Reps, and one would await the report of the committee that will look at whether or not the allegations made by honorable member Dasuki are baseless or they have a basis, and therefore what to do next.
Okay, in the event, I'm just assuming, trying to speak on behalf of Nigerians, because people are watching, waiting for 1st January. In the event the House did not do anything, we didn't hear from the committee, and then on 1st January, the laws take effect. Will they stand in the eye of law, those laws that have been altered as suggested by those who scrutinize them?
No, I think you don't jump the cat or the cart, not the cat, the cart. The fact of the matter is that one does not only expect an explanation from the Senate. One would also expect an explanation from the executive arm of government, which is entrusted with the responsibility to enforce laws. There are allegations that have gone to the integrity of the law. Trust apparently seems to be questioned, and officially, our government has not said anything. And by the way, the Gazette was put out by the federal government, an executive wing of the government. So I'm not expecting only an explanation from Senate. I would also expect to hear something from the executive. Now, if I may add also, I watched the interview that Mr. Oyedele gave yesterday on Channels TV. I think his position was, on the one hand, it was above his pay grade to say whether there was discrepancy or not. All he knows is that the lawmakers would be able to sort things out, and that, of course, he went on to say that he doesn't want this thing to be delayed, blah 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 blah. But you really cannot dismiss this with a wave of the hand if you really want to be. At the core of taxation is law. If the law that you want enforce is open to question, and open to question in many ways, in the public domain, and also it can be challenged in a court of law, and that the facts don't lie. The records of the proceedings and votes in those houses are matters of public record. People would know whether or not the allegations are baseless. This is something that one can hide behind any supposition to say that no, somebody doesn't want this law to work. That's why they are making the law. I also watched another interview by the president of former president of the Chartered Institute of Chartered Taxation. He was saying that, of course, he couldn't defend it, but he was saying that he thought some of the things that were added or subtracted are good for the law, but nobody has any authority to go behind the scene after the legislature has enacted a piece of legislation to add to it or vary it or to subtract from it. Whether or not it is good or bad.
All right. Prof, we've seen the Nigeria Bar Association, Arewa Consultative Forum, many other regional groups, well-meaning Nigerians, all calling for the suspension of the implementation from January 1. Where do we belong?
Well, I made my own position that I think in light of this cloud of uncertainty, even in light of allegation of impropriety in the way the law has been made, it will be unwise to proceed with the implementation of a law over which there are very serious questions. Now, obviously, what are you going to implement? Is it the document that has emanated from the National Assembly and gone to the president? Are they saying that what is in the Gazette, which they put out themselves? You see, it will not help you to say this is fake. I read you out the details, the title, everything about this, and I know that it cannot be something that some Yahoo boy sits in some remote corner of the country to write, and then you can say it is fake. If it is fake from the government. So I don't think, in the interest of the integrity and transparency, it will be ill-advised to proceed to implement a piece of legislation over which there are so serious allegations of impropriety hanging over it.
Okay, then what happens if the government, goes ahead with it, and then do you think citizens will be justified if they resist complying in the eye of law?
I cannot speak. I would rather hope that the government will do the right thing, and that if it fails to do it, I think there are a whole range of available options that is available to the citizens, to people directly affected, and even to state organs. I wouldn't want the implementation of the law to start with a legal challenge. And then once you now embark on a legal challenge on its validity, whatever delay you want to avoid now would be prolonged by needless litigations that you may. I'm not saying that even if you correct things, people will not have the option of challenging provisions in the Act. But I think in light of what has been alleged, it would be most unwise to ignore such thing and then keep mute and hope that this thing would disappear. It won't.
Okay, finally, Prof. The 1999 Constitution envisaged a situation whereby laws passed by the legislature is not the same as the one assented to. And is there any remedy? Or this is actually a new development in our democratic development?
To be honest with you, this is something completely out of the realm of reasonable expectation. I think no one in his wild imagination, knowing how lawmaking takes place, and knowing in particular the Authentication Act that I read to you, would even seek to moderate, to ameliorate, to add to vary, to subtract something that has been passed. Now, I keep saying these are allegations. They remain to be proven wrong or incorrect. And if they are, then obviously government can stand on the gazette that it has put out. By the way, this gazette, as I told you, as I was speaking to you, I have it by my side.
All right.
All the four of them.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Auwalu Yadudu, for your informed perspective on the constitutional implications of the problem we have found out. So we hope to have you some other time, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now back in the studio, we still have Barrister Sam Kargbo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you for your patience, and of course you said that you would love to also listen to Professor Auwalu Yadudu.
I enjoyed it and I learned a lot from it.
Exactly. And midway into the conversation with him, I saw you smiling when he mentioned that a certain figure who has knowledge of tax. He said some of those insertions, they are actually good for the system. Prof rejected.
No, I reject that too.
You also reject that too.
I reject that too.
So now the question I wanted to ask, of course, he has also put his own understanding of gazette. Yesterday, a new lexicon, I can say, because that is the first time I heard about it. It's a draft gazette. And do we have something like draft gazette, and then we now found it for the public to actually buy?
No, let's don't go there, because we are talking about something very serious. The spinners are there, that's their job. But let me also answer a question you asked whether this was the very first time. No, it's in the books. There is a case. I wouldn't tell you the part, but the Attorney General of Bendel State and the Attorney General of the Federation, it was on the same issue as to whether or not what was published was the same as what was actually passed as law. So we have that in the book. So this is not coming as new. But he made the point that we should step back, since this is a public forum, for us to educate the public so that you see the conclusions that I make, the position that is actually given a vent to that. You see, in the Constitution, any matter that has to do with taxation has to start with the House of Representatives. Unlike other laws that can start from any
of the two houses.
Any of the two houses.
Oh.
It has to start
so they have leverage.
Yeah, they have leverage over that, and usually the lawmaking is a structured, layered, step-by-step process. That's how it is in the Constitution. If you go to Section 53 and thereabout, you see the structure.
So the silence by the Senate, because
no. Let me, that's why I want us to get this so that the public would understand what is at issue. Now, when a bill is passed in either of their houses, but this time around in the House of Rep, it has to have a concurrence of the Senate. The Senate must also pass that bill. But sometimes there could be a discrepancy or a disharmony between the two, because they could have emphasis on one area while the other house could have emphasis on the one area. And once you have those discrepancies between the bill as passed in any of the houses, you go to the third stage. You have first the first stage, which is what? The presentation, or the first reading. Then you have what? The second reading, which calls for more detailed reading of the thing that has to do with passing of resolutions, amendment, and all of that, so that the final act as passed by that house will be well structured before you now have the other pass the same bill to the other house for the other house to concur. And thereafter, before the act will go to the public. So usually, if there is a discrepancy between the two, you have a committee. And that committee would be the one to harmonize. And after harmonization, before you now have what? The presidential assent. So if, for an example, the harmonizing committee never came back to either of the houses, which is very improbable, you could have something like this. You understand? And also, usually the transmission of the final copy to the office of the Attorney General may not include final alterations or final amendments from one of the houses. That could happen. And when you take it there, the draftsman also, because mind you, the drafting of the final copy to meet legislative standard is done at that level. You understand? So if any of the more important headings or provisions as passed by the both houses and assented to is omitted or altered at the point of printing, that is ultra-virus. You understand? and therefore it cannot stand. But mind you, the original copy that is authenticated is there with the clerk of the house. That is what? The original version. Which
agreed
is
by both houses.
Is the primary evidence. You understand? So the gazette is a notice to the public that this is the law as passed. That is a secondary evidence. So if there is a discrepancy between that and the primary evidence, it shouldn't take much of a hassle for you to have a look and compare the two. And if you compare the two and notice those discrepancies, you bring it to the notice of the executive, because what? That errors, assuming it's an error, because I don't want to go as far as that fraud or that ultra-virus, just like the professor had said, you cannot, at the point or at the stage of printing, alter the law, no matter what, because what? That would offend the principle of separation of powers. That is not your business. Your business is basically to print the copy as passed by both houses and assented to by the president, because any alteration thereafter, especially when that alteration or that particular inclusion or assertion is not clerical.
Do you have an idea as to where the infraction took place?
I don't. That's why I'm tentative.
And it can be anywhere.
It can be anywhere.
It can be from the house.
It can be from the house.
From the office of the Attorney General.
It can be
maybe the draftsman. Beautiful. Someone can influence.
Beautiful. And that is why now that they've taken up it upon themselves for them to have a kind of what? A tracing and have a preliminary look at the documents that are in issue. Let's wait for them. Let's don't make or jump to conclusions.
Could the general public,
yes,
be wrong for assuming that the Senate specifically is complicit for being mute all this while?
You know, sometimes what you take serious may not be what the other person takes serious. And mind you, it's not advisable for the legislature to always join issues with the public. If for anything, they should respond. Joining issue with them in any other way would be, to me, disrespectful to the public. If the public have made a cry, this time around, it is not the public that has made the outcry. It is one of you who has raised this and alerted the public. The public was waiting for...
You are making reference to Rep.
The public was waiting for January 1 with the belief that what is coming in January 1 or what will be implemented in January 1 is the law as passed by the National Assembly. Now that a member has what? Raised that alarm to say, oh, there is a discrepancy here. What we pass is not what is printed. What he is simply saying, don't rely on it. And the moment you give that panic, that uncertainty, you halt the process, because you go further from that. Just like you've asked the question, the law would not say, oh, don't implement, but the law gives you the power to challenge it. And even the states have the power to go and challenge the thing, because what? It affects them.
Okay,
they are stakeholders.
I asked
yes.
Prof whether in the event,
yes,
no response from the House committee, not from anywhere, and then on January 1, the laws come to effect. Are you on the same page with the Prof, or you have a different opinion as to the legitimacy of the process, whether Nigerians can resist it to say, oh, I will not, because I have questions?
No, the question should be whether or not the president should go ahead with it, or the FIR should go along. I would say that the president should ask for a stay.
Does he have that power in the eye of law?
Why not? It's an executive order. Mind you...
so he has the... Because some people are saying, unless... Because we ask, I think yesterday or thereabout, we ask some questions. They said only the National Assembly can stop the commencement of implementation.
Yeah, the law takes its effect. That's why I was saying, listen, I was saying that you cannot say Nigerians have the justification to resist, because the law stands until it is set aside. It has to be struck out by an order of court. And the National Assembly also have the power to amend, recall that, and make the corrections to fit what they had passed. They have that right. And yes, you could say the executive itself could say, oh, expunge those aspects of it that are not what the National Assembly has done. I believe they can do that. I believe the
because I am asking this because someone whom we spoke with said, the executive has no case. If you want this, laws to be suspended, go and put pressure on the National Assembly.
You are not suspending the law.
Okay.
But
maybe delaying
implementation. Listen, I have said this. The law is not the cassette. The cassette is not the law. The law is the instrument that is assented to by the president. The gazette is a notice. It's like a notice board. That is not the law. The original document is there. You understand? The clerk of the house has a copy because what? He is one of the authentifying authorities. Sign that this is the law as passed and assented to by Mr. President. He signed it. It's there. That document is there. Okay. So that document, I believe, is what is transmitted to the press, to FIRS. FIRS cannot tell me that he's going to rely on the gazette, the gazette, even though the law says you should gazette it, but I would say the act has been done already. What you are gazetting is a law already passed, and the law became effective as of the day it is assented to. So that is where the law is. So if you have an issue with post the law, you understand, the issue with post the law, that is one, like I would say, I won't use the word, but that's fraud you are talking about. Yes. Because you are misleading the public.
And we have
the public has to have reliance on documents coming from you. Because what? You are the authority that he has to hear from. Even though the law is made by the National Assembly, the law has given you the responsibility to communicate that law to the public. So you cannot use that errand position of communicating to the public to doctor the document and mislead the public. You understand? So when I say, yes, Mr. President can say, halt this, the gazette, go back to the original document and implement the original documents as it is, pending when the National Assembly would have attended to this. The National Assembly is going to come out, and is supposed to come out, with a very definitive statement as to whether or not that very particular discrepancy exists in any way, and the extent of it, and the position they would take in addressing that. So that is why I'm saying, yes, we should be panicky, because what? We want to be certain. We do not want an idea, somebody telling me that, oh, the taxman is coming with something other than what we've authorized him. That, to me, is scary. And that's why I would feel that for the integrity of the process and for the comfort of Nigerians, that implementation date, which is also said by the presidency, I do not think that it's invaluable. You can say, let's wait. Because in any case, just like Prof said, if you don't, and somebody goes to court, that put a halt. Even if there is no injunction, even if there is no categorical order stopping it, the moment the issue is before the court, you have to stop. Because
you can't implement it.
You can't implement it.
All right.
By doing so, you would be what?
Contemptuous.
Not contemptuous, but actually interfering with the judicial process itself.
All right. Thank you very much, constitutional lawyer, Barrister SAN Kargbo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for coming to the program and for this very, very important intervention. We hope to have you some other time.
Thank you very much.
And viewers, will take a short break. When we return, a different conversation commences. Don't go away.